Yeah. Well, here I am again. That's okay. I'm glad to step in when needed. This originally planned as Jason Kantz and his wife. I can't remember his wife's name. I'm sorry. Jason belongs to a farm south of Brookings. I'm just going to give you a little introduction of what you missed. And the Kantz family has been in that area for a long time. And if you drive along I-29 there south of Brookings and you see equipment for sale, that's one of the Kantzes that's selling that. I don't know which one. It could be Jason himself. I've never asked him. But anyway, some of Jason's land butts up right against I-29, and it's no-till. And it's right south of that area. So you may want to just take a look at that a little bit when you go by. Anyway, transitioning to soil health systems, I did this presentation. I'm not going to hide it. Did it back in February for our crop hour, SDSU crop hour, extension crop hour, and Cindy knew that, and that's what Jason was going to talk about. So it just seemed kind of fitting to fill right in here. Thing I have first is tillage's influence on organic matter. The slides are kind of hard to see, but this is no-till and going all the way down to plow, moldboard plow here. So you can see that's an obvious decrease, and the reference is really shaded, and the intent was not to do that, but there is a reference there for that data. Stop tillage, CO2 loss from the soil. The tillage influence there, again, it's kind of blurry, but we have winter, spring, and summer here, and you really kind of ignore what this is, but it's the CO2 flux coming out of the soil. And when we have our different systems here, and that's washing out as well. But no-till, blue, disc, orange, chisel, gray, I think. I can't remember the CC. No-till with cover crop, disc with cover crop, and moldboard plow. The big message here is the difference in the blue and the green. Okay, see that? And there is a time when no-till is losing carbon. There's no doubt about that. We can't hide that fact at all. But what else is going on in the summertime when that no-till is losing its carbon? What else is going on right there? Yeah, exactly. You're growing a crop, and it can take that, recycle that, if you will. Does all that go in the crop? No, we can't say that. But it's a convenience, right? To have that happening. Not back here in the winter and the spring when there's a brown period. That's when we want to be saving our carbon, okay? So anyway, that was a study that I wanted to share. Soil armor, by the way, I'm going through the soil health principles here, okay? It's a subliminal message. Did you hear that? Okay, you want me over. I didn't want to, I'm standing in front of folks here. But anyway, this is armor. I mean, that soil's protected. I mean, I don't know what else to say. That's what we wanted to look like. And there's one other take home there for transitioning I wanted to make, and that residue spread well. You don't see the combine track, do you? You can't tell which way the combine went. This is well, you might be able to see some dark indications there from wheel tracks, but that's other things too. But that's my goal. This is probably the best I've ever done spreading my residue. I'm going to show you my best. That would be an example of that. Sometimes the wind blows, and and on my side hills, it all goes the direction I don't want it to go, and I got it thin and thick and thin and thick and thin and thick, But this is what I'm striving for. Must have been a calm day, and the old combine was doing a really good job. Again, armor. A cover crop here growing in wheat stubble. Okay, there's a living root. That soil is totally covered. I mean, you can't find a bare patch there in that case. Okay. Again, another picture of armor. This here is in the fall, this picture, and then this is in the spring, wheat planted into that, or corn planted into that wheat in that cover crop. Take a look at that. Why wouldn't everybody do that? Oh, we're worried about 5 bushels? You know, I mean, that's why I said earlier I'm more focused on the net and not the gross. Don't go after that last bushel, that last 2 bushels or 3 bushels or whatever that number is. I mean, those are your most expensive bushels. Okay, that's kind of the point. Here it is when the corn's obviously bigger. Same field. And I hate to tell you this is my I didn't share that in February, but this is my most successful attempt at wheat. 98 bushels. 98 bushel wheat straw. Didn't take the straw. Didn't take it. Planted a cover crop. And then I end up with this. Okay? There's no armor. That's that's what my neighbor does. You know my neighbor, so I guess I can say that. That's what happens. What do you see here? This is a soil physics education. What do you see there? Can you see it well enough? Erosion? Sure. Yeah. What? Why? What? Okay, but can you see the erosion? No. Well, what I see is I've done that. And I knew exactly what Dad was going to say to do. When we got a heavy rain, get the 40-20 and hook up the rotary hoe. You know, we got a chance at killing some young weed seedlings in this case. Corn's already up. But there is a case when the corn's not up and you got that crust, you need to break the crust to get the corn to come up. Done it many times. You know, that was fun. 8 miles an hour and a 40-20 out in the field is vroom, vroom. The dirt's flying and you're black as can be when you get back, right? Don't do that anymore. But here's what I see. I see these little pieces of residue here, right there, right here, right there. You keep going. And the soil looks different there, doesn't it, than it does out here. That's because it's protected a little bit more than there. This is a crust. That's a solid crust. That's an indicator of very poor soil health. Okay? So we have no pores connected to the surface here. There probably was some pores after the tillage. You know, I've heard that question. Oh, doesn't chisel plow take in more water than no-till? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, until it's full. And then it all runs off. Same thing is here. This is not taking in any more water. None. Okay? Then we get, this picture's on basically the top of the hill or the side hill, and then here's the evidence of the erosion. Okay, there it is. This is a rill. Can you see that? Yeah. The corn rows are missing. Get the cultivator and cultivate those back in, and they're gone. I've done that too. Go real slow when you go through that, Dad says. Go real slow. Push the dirt in, and we're on to the next storm, right? So here's a loss of armor. I'd never seen, you know, this is becoming too frequent in the last few years. I don't know that we've seen that 30, 40 years ago. I don't know that we've seen that. The whole ditch level full of corn stalks almost. Not quite, but I've seen balers and rakes going out and getting that stuff. That's really sad. I mean, I just don't get that. Anyway, this is where it all begins. The Great Exchange, as I think I mentioned, it's beginning right here with these root systems. So the plant is capturing sunlight, and the roots are taking in water, and there's a xylem phloem thing in the plant, and there's sugars being released at the roots. The microbes want those sugars. Sugars are carbon. And then the nutrients are heavy along those roots, and the plant gets those nutrients. To me, that's the place of the Great Exchange. Sunlight meeting soil, right there, through the plant. And because of that, we got a lot of microbial activity around those roots. There's, I think Dr. Nichols was part of discovering glomalin. That's one of the substances they first discovered, and it's an organic glue. And it's sticking these soil particles together, sand, silt, clay, and organic matter. It clumps them together. That's why you see these clumps hanging onto the roots. So this happens with most every plant. There are a few plants where it's not happening as much, but that's a moot point. Most plants that happens. And then tillage comes along like a big eraser and erases this whole thing, and we got to start over next year with the next plants. Okay? But if you leave this alone, this happens again and again and again, and these aggregates, these soil aggregates come and they go. There's classes. This is a whole science in itself, studying the aggregates. Okay? And there's different sizes, and there's different strengths to these things. And why I think we have so much blowing now compared to a ways back. And forget the dirty 30s, forget the bad drought years, but we've seen an increase in blowing soil, and it's because I think the tillage intensity is breaking down our most strongest aggregates. And those were really the foundation of what was holding our soil. And they're disappearing because all these trips across the field. Okay? So that's a whole science. There's some young guys in the room. I mean, you got a whole life ahead of you to study some of this stuff, so it's kind of fascinating. So here's a good example of soil health that I have, thanks to my work with Al Miron. Very poor soil here. These are just dug up with a spade. You dig this up and it comes up in these big clumps. That's no structure. This is structureless soil. Okay, this is corn silage. There's alfalfa here. There's soybeans here once in a while. Maybe even some livestock on that piece. I mean, I'm going to throw it out there. Just because you have those things doesn't mean it's you're going to have just a miraculous change. The practice does not make the farmer. The farmer makes the practice. There are bad no-till farmers. Okay? So you got to know what you're doing. This one comes from a long-term no-till soil, corn soybean rotation. I'll throw it out there like it is. Not all the practices. Looks good. That's Al Miron's field. And these two soils, I could throw the softball from one to the other across the road. Okay? The color, can you see the color difference? What does the color mean? More carbon, exactly. You can see that. We don't need a lab to measure it. It's nice, but it's there. So diversity, multi-species cover crops. What's the answer? How many do you need? Which ones do you need? I really don't think we know. I like to talk about the carbon-nitrogen ratio, and I probably won't get, I don't think it's in this presentation. But usually if you have a high carbon crop, you want to follow it with low carbon cover crops with the next crop in mind. Okay? So you want to precede a broadleaf low carbon crop with a high carbon cover crop or crop. I guess that's why I plant my soybeans after my wheat and my cover crop. Because I got that high carbon and I want to go to a low carbon. I'm thinking about soil coverage after that low carbon crop. Okay, by the way, the native pheasant population around my farm we've noticed a difference. You know, is it stellar? No. You know, do we see groups of pheasants? Yes. We do, and they're living in soybeans growing after this type of cover crop. Believe it or not, that's a weird story, but they are, because they still got that low cover there they like. I really don't know why I got this in here. I left it in there. It's a plot tour. You see all the people and a few cars. These are strips of cover crops that we're kind of looking at. And you can kind of see the differences out there. There's more broadleaves here because, there's more structure or texture to the picture. More grass probably here. But just an example of some of the things that we do. Crop rotation. The beans on beans thing bothers me. And so I did a literature review, and Dr. Clark over here can, attest to doing literature reviews. This is 56 site years of data. And basically I found publications looking at crop rotations. And so the art of this is trying to find the common story or theme amongst all those publications. And what it was the corn soybean rotation here is a 100, okay? And all of these yields, these data points are comparable to this 100. And these are points from rotations with 1 year of soybeans in the rotation, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? And you can see how the yield comes down with the more soybeans in a row that you grow. Okay? So we're down here 4 and 5 years at 13% yield loss compared to the corn soybean rotation. 13%. If you do beans on beans, this is at least 2 years. That's my caveat here. At least 2 years without soybeans here, so the yield's higher than the corn soybean rotation by about 5%. I mean, there's a lot of variability in these numbers. I show it all. But if you do these practices over time, you're going to experience variability as well. It's not the same every year. But the average is 5% higher. So on 50 bushel beans, that's 2.5 bushels more if you're more than 2 years out with soybeans. Yeah, that means something. Or you're 7.5 bushels down if you're 4 years of beans in a row. Right? So it's a big deal. I mean, it's there. I think it's real. And then we got the livestock. And I don't know where I got this picture, but I really like mob grazing concept. Never done it. I've been on a few farms that do it. I guess the most impactful farm that I was on was an organic grass-fed dairy farm in Oregon. And we pulled in that yard in our vans, and this farm has tours almost every other day, and what are all these sidewalks? They just go off in this direction, go off in that direction, go off in this direction. Those cows had sidewalks to walk on to get to the pasture. Because the farmer said, when we didn't have sidewalks, we had these deep gullies where the cattle went to the field. And I know that because we had one on our farm when it was a dairy. The cows went a half mile to a pasture, and they had this 20-foot lane to walk through. And that lane was, I remember going in it as a kid, the fences were like this on each side. And I filled it in with my bulldozer, okay? But anyway, they had sidewalks, and that was mob grazing. Those cows took off like a rocket when they came out of that loafing barn. Down that sidewalk, one after another. And they had plenty of opportunity to cut off into the pasture that they had grazed just the day before. Heck no. They went down that sidewalk to the new grass because they knew they were getting new grass every day. That was impressive. That was really impressive. So the mob grazing really does something. I'm not a livestock person. I'm going to stop there with that. But just think of that intensity of that biology affecting the biology in the soil. It's huge, really huge. There are some cows there. They're up against, I think there's a fence right here. Same thing. They very rarely go back on what they've grazed the day before. They know. They just know. Okay? There we got some cattle grazing on a cover crop. Kind of a neat picture. So really it's about the soil health principles. I just kind of covered them. The armor, and you've seen this. You heard me talk in the other room. The tillage, the no-till, the diversity, both in the crop rotation and in the cover crop. And really that living root as much as possible. That's the great exchange. You know, we all exchange money for something in return. So I thought of it, well, the plant's exchanging something for something in return. But look at the benefit of that happening. It's really big in building soil, okay? And then livestock. The livestock give you that added biology boost, if you will. So I had the question about the effect of management on carbon and then grazing, and I guess we talk organic matter here. I did some scenarios of cover crop biomass. Here I got 1,000, 3,000, 6,000 pounds. I estimated the root biomass of each one of those, and some would argue it's a lot more, but I tend to be on the conservative side. 1,000 pounds of biomass is not a lot of cover crop, okay? And then pounds of humus with no grazing, and then converted to organic matter, okay? And I used a 20% conversion rate there. And so if you've got the biomass and the root biomass, you've got that much humus, that's going to be that much organic matter. And then if you graze it and put that above ground material through the cow, there's an additional kick to your organic matter. And then the increase to 1% organic matter here. If you're just doing the cover crop, 1,000 pounds only. This is just the effect from the cover crop, not the other crop, not your cash crop, but just the cover crop. Its contribution is about 71 years to get 1% organic matter at only 1,000 pounds. 6,000 pounds is about 12 years, okay? And then if you graze it, you almost cut those numbers in half. There's the answer to that fellow's question out on the other session, I guess. You know, how quickly, you know, can you do that? That's just my close number thing, you know. And here's my math. Okay, yeah, I just put it down there to verify. But it takes a while, okay. More biomass you produce, the faster it'll go. You graze it, you can even make it go faster. So that's the kind of the take-home message there. This needs improvement. Just some examples here of things I've seen. Don't like these strips of thicker and thin residue out there. Don't like that at all. You're going to come and plant that and you're going to tell me, oh, the crop looks terrible where the residue was thicker than when it was thinner. Yep. Shoulda, coulda spread that out a little bit more. And then it all looked the same. You wouldn't be asking me the question. That's the answer there, okay? You need a good spread. And this is not my field. This is somebody else's. You need a good spread. You can see that there's some different lines out there. You need a good spread. This is planted. So this was my only, I grew cereal rye once on my farm. I had a question after my presentation. You know, you mentioned cereal rye, you don't grow it on your farm anymore. And I said, yeah, it's not because I don't like it. I love cereal rye. It's great. Great soil builder. I mean, it's just huge. Great deal. But like I said, I grow oats sometimes for the food grade market. They don't want any gluten in their oats. Rye has gluten in it. And rye's a fighter. Rye's a huge fighter. You'll see it hang around a long time. My friend Henry Roghair said, once you have rye, you always have rye. And Henry's a certified seed grower from Jones County. He said, we fought for 20, 30 years to get off our farm. You got to walk through, rogue those plants out, you know. If you've got a seed field, you got to get rid of them. They don't want that in there. So that's the message. Use the cereal rye if you're not someone like Henry or me. Use it. It's great soil builder. So one year I had it before I kind of learned all this and kind of believed all of that. Now I do because my kids and we rogued a lot of rye out of some wheat. And it was food grade wheat, you know, and things like that. And so the wheat has gluten too, but I mean, we just got it out of there because other crops a big thing in the food grade market. They want you below a certain number, so rye is another crop. But this is cereal rye. There was a cover crop out here. This is planted. You can see some diagonal tracks out here from fertilizer spreading. That's when I went at an angle yet. This is what that corn looks like coming up in that thick rye. That rye was dead brown when I planted it. If you're going to go off that cliff and do that, I recommend it to be brown. There's some allelopathic things going on when rye, stubble, green rye is deteriorating and breaking down. You'll see some articles about the green ooze and all of that. So our mantra at SDSU is, you know, to really do no harm. There's all kinds of examples of farmers planting corn into cereal rye and being green rye and being just fine. But I've seen all the examples that are bad. Not all of them, but some of them. I don't want anybody to experience that. So that's why I say what I say. If you want to roll the dice and take the chance, that's your decision. But David and I got to say, at least it's got to be brown if you're going to do it. For corn, soybeans, and there's no problem with soybeans. This corn, okay. So we did it here. That's what it looked like, you know, later. Obviously, I moved no residue. I did for years. Those residue managers got to be down. Boy, we got to see that black soil, and we got to warm that up. And listen to Paul Yassa talk from Nebraska. Listen to him talk. This soil that's covered is more even in temperature. The temperature change is more even. Yep, it's probably a little cooler. So what? Corn is a warm season grass plant. Okay? It'll take off when it gets the heat. And that's what this did. Just took off. There's that full coverage. That's what it looked like the previous fall. Got a little bit stronger silver in this area, but I had some brassicas out there too, and it looked pretty good. That's what the corn looked like when I combined it. Went 206 or something like that. Really, really decent yield. Okay. There's a midden, the bottom side of a midden. A midden is a night crawler hut, home. This is their hole right there. So they're vertical creatures. They like to go deep down in the soil and come to the surface, and they feed on the surface and drag down the residues down the hole. You dig holes in Al Miron's field or mine, or you can see the evidence of the night crawlers going up and down because you see the mixing of the soil, the dark soil and the light even in the dark. They're bringing it up. They're ecosystem engineers. They're doing the tillage. Okay, if you need any. But this is their home, and it's just been inverted. It picked it up, went like this. So it's a little teepee, a little hut. And they're dragging all of the residue and straw over to their hole to protect it, and then eventually dragging it down in the hole. This is the bottom side. There's winter wheat flown into corn. I really like that. Or this could be cereal rye as well. Winter wheat probably has a little more chance of winter killing. The cereal rye is almost bulletproof, like Dr. Sexton would say. That's his term, bulletproof. It's a good thing.
Anthony, when did you fly that in?
I fly this in right at when the corn matures. So right around that black layer time. The leaves are falling on the corn, light's coming into the row, and then the wheat or rye will grow. Yeah. There's another picture there, before harvest. And then planting green into something like that. This is after a cereal grain. This isn't soybeans after corn with wheat, This is beans after wheat with wheat growing there, so it's planting green.
Have you experimented flying on beans yet?
I flew some camelina on. Yep. I don't like to write that check for the airplane. I just see that year after year after year after year, and I wish I had a better way to do that. I know David Brandt in Ohio has got this big Hagee machine, and he goes out. And I had a neighbor do that, and he just said, there's a lot of corn knocked down on the end of the field, and I don't know if that's the answer either. There's an answer there. I think we can figure it out. For now, it's the airplane, and I think, it works. But, my airplane guy is, he's not going to buy a new plane. It's his last airplane. And he just has the lever he opens up and the flap opens up. There's a more sophisticated system that's got another way of metering the seed. If you saw the picture in my last, there was the plane we were calibrating, and it's a little flipper, and so we just have to adjust that. Well, it leaks a little bit. Or I don't know what happened, but over on my neighbor's, he gets my wheat. And, He likes it. It's okay. But I mean, you got to recognize that when that plane's turning, I had some on my house and it came down the rain gutter and, it happens, right? It's not the end of the world. So there's that picture I shared. I love this. I got this idea from Kelly Cooper. I'm just going to say that, out of North Dakota. He's got pictures of seeding beans, planting green while it's raining. The windshield wiper's going and he's out there planting. Just an amazing thing, I guess. But anyway, that's just super good. One thing I've learned about this system is the antler sheds from the deer. Yep. They could get you. They almost got me. One of them big antler went through a tire lug on my tractor, and I got thinking about that. So we go look a little bit, try to find them. But anyway, just want to dive a little deeper. This is a radish, and another one here. And I'm in a guy's field that's trying cover crops for the first time. And this is where the trucks drive all the time. And you can see it on his yield map. Every acre counts would say, don't quit farming that. It's so compacted. But this is an example of that radish just meeting that resistance and trying its darndest to find, a way through. To me, that's what that picture says there. And then again, this one's kind of met it and kind of doing it left and right, and these three here, see, kind of trying to find a way down. But very compacted. You're not going to see this. This is actually 2012. I've labeled cornfields here, and you're not going to see it because of the way the projector's going. I probably should have just took it out, but I didn't know. These fields are conventional till, these three here. And if you look really hard, there's some brown patches in here. Yeah, it's so hard to tell, but on Google Earth you can see it. There's one right here particularly and one right here. This corn, there's none. That's no-till corn there. With a lot of hills, just like these fields here. There was no crop insurance on that corn in 12. There probably was on these, I don't know for sure. But you could see it that year. Oh, here's that organic matter carbon relationship. Pretty clear. Number of sites, places. Things I don't have pictures for are broadcast versus banned fertilizer. We've learned that if you're at least in the medium category for phosphorus, broadcasting is just as good as banding. But if you're in low and very low tests, yes, you better be banding. And I think that's the difference between what I say and Dwayne. I really think that's the difference. And I showed you my soil tests. I keep them up there at 10 to 15. Sometimes they dip below 10 a little bit. But the research shows if you're medium or higher, broadcast is working fine. Nitrogen stabilizers and additives. You can put NBPT, urease inhibitor, in urea to help stabilize it. We do know that new no-tillers need a little extra N. Don't like to say that, but anytime you build carbon in the soil up, you got to add N too, from somewhere. There's 1,000 pounds. Go ahead, Mark.
Anthony, have you found with nitrogen stabilizers, with your level of armor laying over the soil, does that protect the N more than if you were just laying it on ground, bare ground, where you wouldn't need to spend that stabilizer dollar?
Urease enzyme covers all the residues. And on bare ground, there's not as much. But I've used stabilizers. There's probably only one time I can really say to myself, that was worth it. Most of the time it rains. And the urea lays there 2, 3, 4, 5 days. I don't care. We usually get a rain. It's those years when we're not getting rains kind of bother me. In fact, what year was it? We got a lot of small rains. That was the year I think I said the stabilizer. Because the little rains that get it wet and then dry out, get it wet, well, we're losing. That was a good year to do that practice, I think.
I'm not clear, what are you saying? It's worse?
You mean the residue?
Yeah, it's worse than the residue then?
You know, if you're going to be wet like that every little bit, yeah, you got way more urease enzyme there, and then you're wetting and you're drying and wetting and drying and going through all them little cases, it probably is a little worse. But I don't know. I didn't put any on last year. They don't have the right kind at my dealer. They want to give me something else, and I want just good old NBPT. You know, a good product with the right amount in it. And some of these products are half rates with something else. And I don't know what the something else is. So that's just me. I don't go there.
You're putting it on early though, aren't you?
I try to. Yeah, I try to get it on in April. Yep.
That's I guess my experience. I played hardly ever feel that it didn't do good. But try to get it on early when it's cool and you usually get it rain.
Yep. I try to get, in a perfect world, if you could, it's going to rain tomorrow, I'm going to put all my in on today. That's a perfect world. And anyway. Sulfur, you know, I think no-till needs sulfur because we're not mineralizing, we're not mixing it up. I think there's a need there. I think seed selection is very important, especially for corn on corn. And some of your corn seed books have ratings for no-till. I kind of look at that a little bit. I'm not going to pick one that's not rated really good, but last year I kind of fell apart with one hybrid. Down pressure. Oh, geez, that's a whole topic. Dr. Yasa, Paul Yasa. You know, if you put pressure on each row, you can lift up the toolbar of the planter. So you need weight on the toolbar to overreact or offset the pressure you're putting up on your row unit or putting down on your row unit. And now we got all these gadgets where we control the residue manager and we control the tailpiece, and now we got all those interactions going on too. So keep the planter on the ground, toolbar running the right height, and everything's going to be good. Down pressure per row, 350 to 400 pounds. Sometimes. So, and a couple of the farmers switching that I work with, that was their first mistake. Right there. And by golly, don't have those new pickup eyes. If something is wrong, don't think it's right because you're doing the right practice. Stop. Just stop. Call Brian or Dan or me or somebody and talk to them before you plant all your corn. Don't make that mistake. Don't do that. Because I've been on farms where they did that. I wasn't getting my furrow closed. And one person that was there evaluating that says, really nice person, do you suppose you could have seen that when you were planting? Asked it kind of in a nice way. Stop. Just stop if something's wrong. Seed firmers, I like those. Get that seed in the bottom of the trench. Drag chains are an old technology, but they can serve a purpose in the right place. I've used them for years, but now I don't move my residue out of the way. I really can't use them because they bunch up too much, so they had to come off. Okay. Crop rotation, soil compaction, and cover crops. So that ended it. I can go back there, and do we have time for questions or not?
Yep.
Okay. That was a good place to end. Lots of different things. And I have their cover crops saved for Friday. Yeah, that was what we talked about on Friday last year, but anyway. So that's my transitioning thing, I think. Got to help help people that want help to get through that. Yeah.
What about putting manure on later, like on top of your cover crop later in the winter? Does that do more damage than?
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you got to be thinking, can I plant through this, next spring? I mean, so that's the spread. The spread's got to be good. Jim and Lee Capriva spread a lot of manure, and they no-till plant through it. Best spread I've ever seen was from a high-velocity spreader. That's one of them side ones. Man, they chop it up and kick it out and do a really nice job. Yeah, I can no-till right across that. Not a problem at all. If it's in big chunks and you can tolerate those, it's all about your toleration. You can plant through those and push them aside and keep planting. Go for it, But yeah, lots of manure gets spread. That's Dwayne talked for years about composting. Because we're locking in the nutrients in that compost, and we put that out there, and that's just a good thing. Yeah.
Depending on the soil moisture, if you got too much moisture, you don't want to be out there unless the ground's hard.
Right, yeah, you don't want to leave ruts, that you got to plan over. Exactly. Thanks, Brian. Yep. You got to do it at the right time. If the ground's froze, then you don't have that problem.
Do you spread much phosphorus, or are you, from your other presentation, kind of at levels you like?
Yeah, I'm still following what I teach on that. I keep it in that medium category. Medium. 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'll get a 15 once in a while. But I showed the data. It was so hard to see. But I plotted that line, and I want to see a flat line right where I want it. Yeah.
Broadcasting that in the fall?
I would like to. I just...
Broadcasting it, you're not placing it.
I'm broadcasting it. We went from banning everything to broadcasting in 2000 or a little bit after that. Yep. But my soil tests are medium or above. If you're below that, banding is better. That's what our publication says.
What if ours are medium or above, but our soil health structure is nowhere near what yours is? Does that change the equation?
If you have the ability to band, I'd probably keep doing that a little while. And just kind of think and watch when, okay, now I feel good about, and then by golly, leave a check strip. Evaluate on your own farm. It's hard to do. I know. I don't do a good job at it either, but I try. Leave a check strip. So, yeah.
So I'm guilty of still wanting to move a little dirt with the trash hookers. You're not seeing sustained better emergence as far as evenness. You're
Yep.
waiting any longer to plant at the same time, even if it's old, still going in.
I don't know where I was. Oh, Ipswich. I don't give the same talk twice. I mean, I can, but I don't say the same words. I told them, it's all about reading the seasons. There's an old John Denver song. I can't remember the name. Something about Montana. Something about this young guy going to Montana and making a way for himself. Learning to be a farmer. And one of the signs is he learned to read the seasons. That ain't a joke. You know what I mean? You can make a mistake. I made a mistake in, oh crap, I planted corn in April like I was feeding into this thing, planted early. We had 12 inches of snow. My dad waited. After the snow melted, he planted. His corn almost came up before mine. I had that cold water imbibition. I had it. I can live it. It was real. So we're done, right? Okay, thank you for your time.